So good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
We're possible. I'm possible.
Possible.
As Anthony said, how are you?
I'm possible.
Let's try one more time. How are you?
I'm possible.
Oh, I feel so much better. Thank you. It is so good to see all of you. Thank you for making the time to be here with our third Chair of the Board Symposium. The last two were really wonderful conversations, and I'm really excited about this one, mostly because you'll get to hear from my colleagues that are sitting here next to me, the members of the steering committee. But I wanted to start out by just saying thank you to all of you. This was a really important process for us at ADIA to be able to get all of your ideas as we celebrate our centennial and then look into the future and what issues we need to address. And you'll hear more about the process that we went through. And what I hope you notice through this process is that we wanted to identify these challenges that are chronic or new challenges facing our organization. But also, just as important, we wanted to make sure that we were hearing all of your voices and we were lifting up the voices of individuals that weren't maybe necessarily involved in leadership and in the conversations that we're having. So you'll hopefully see that theme throughout the entire presentation. So my name is Nader Nadershahi. I have the privilege of serving as chair of the board and also chairing the New Thinking for the New Century steering committee. This symposium will go over the findings and some of the recommendations from our steering committee and the subcommittees. And you'll hear from our panelists that are the members of the steering committee. Nothing to disclose other than I have a bad sense of humor. And others on the panel may have things to disclose that we don't want them to. So, but no financial disclosures.
No.
Dr. Panagakos, that was for you specifically. The real reason why I'm up here at the beginning is just to say thank you to the individuals that you see to my left, the members of the steering committee. They will have a chance to introduce themselves as they go over their presentations, but I just wanted to publicly in this session say thank you to them for saying yes when I reached out and asked them if they'd be willing to be a part of this conversation for ADIA and for the entire board. And I do want to say thank you. The incredible amount of time that you've put in over the last 2 years, the work that you've done working with the steering committees, it helps our organization, it helps every single member, and hopefully we'll continue to do that in the years ahead. So thank you to our steering committee members. Great group of individuals, and you'll see some, you'll see more. We really represent all of our ADIA membership here. And I also want to thank the individuals that worked with us to support this. Oh, you're all sitting right here. So right Jeffrey, thank you, Michaela and Josh. I think it's safe to speak for everybody on the stage that we would not have gotten this work done and been as far as we are and as organized if it wasn't for the three of you. So thank you for your service to ADIA, and I look forward to your continued involvement as we continue the conversations on implementing the strategies that are coming out and the suggestions coming out of this group. So with that, I will turn it over to our first presenter, Dr. Fodi Panagakos.
Thank you, Nadir. And again, I think I speak on behalf of everyone up here. Thanks for inviting us on this journey the last couple of years. It's been really wonderful. And our work is not yet done, even though this is sort of the culmination of the project and presenting the results of our subcommittees and all the people that worked on it. But there are some additional things that we're planning to do as a group that I'll touch on towards the end. So what I'm going to do is just walk you through the process that we took on to come to today. And it's there are unfortunately, someone said I probably have the most slides, which I didn't really count, but someone did. I was with one of the subcommittees, and my colleagues will be presenting the results from our subcommittee, but I offered to just walk us through. So this would not have happened without the folks on the slide here, and if we put their pictures up, I think it would have started looking like that montage that they're taking over in the other part of the building for those profile pictures and personal pictures that people are taking. But seriously, this group of individuals really did the lion's share of the work under each of the subcommittees. And we'll talk about the subcommittees and how we came up to the 4 topics in a moment. But what I'd like to just point out to you is a few things. First off, these individuals were actually, their names were submitted by the sections within ADIA. We put a call out to the sections that we were looking for individuals, and we said we wanted individuals from a broad swath of the organization, from an experience perspective, obviously an age perspective, organization that they're coming from, so we could really capture a lot of voices and hopefully some new voices that maybe haven't been as pronounced within the organization. And so what I'd like to do at this point is, if anyone who served on a subcommittee is in the room today to see the final result, I would appreciate if you would stand up so we could recognize you. Thank you again on behalf of everyone up here for all the hard work that you put in during this process. And we decided to do a little map just to show you the diversity of the participants geographically, the type of institution they're coming from, or the section within ADIA that they're representing. And you can see we had quite a distribution of individuals in all of these categories. And I think it really added richness to the process that we undertook. So what was the role of the steering committee? Well, our main charge was really to design the process that we were going to go through, member engagement, make sure that we cover all the bases that we wanted to cover relative to these both chronic and emerging challenges that we're experiencing here within our profession. We needed to synthesize those inputs, put them into some kind of a form that we could then address them through this new thinking for the new century effort, and then focus on what is each of the subcommittees supposed to deliver at the end of their work period. We wanted to, as I mentioned, engage a diverse and inclusive group of individuals, and I feel we really achieved that during this process. And you could see by the folks that we had in the subcommittee that we really kept that top of mind. Each of us on this panel, except for Nadir, he just would pop in for steering committee meetings and then he would disappear. He has an organization to run. He's got very busy man. He's got to purchase, fancy sneakers, so we all understood, right? We understood.
See what I've had to deal with for 2 years.
We had to put up with your jokes. You can take a little bit. You can take a little bit right now. Okay. This is what in Jersey we call payback. Okay. So anyway, even though I'm in Washington, I'm still from over there. You know that. But seriously, we all work together to co-lead these subcommittees and really drive the process forward. And I have to say, and I'm not speaking for the rest of the group because we really didn't talk about this, but I know for me, it was amazing how the subcommittees gelled right off the bat. Right off the bat, people were working together, collaborative. We used Slack, I believe, for our group. And I'm not a big Slack, though. I'm a generation behind that. But it was really good to communicate and to post things and to share things, and it was really quite enjoyable to interact in that way. We wanted to review and refine the work of the subcommittee, so as we had different milestones, and you'll see the timeline in a moment, the milestones, we got together to kind of review things and make sure we were on track, and then to prepare that final report and recommendations, which will be forthcoming, and then to deliver this presentation today. So in order to inform the process, we actually did a survey, and some of you may have remembered this survey from a few years ago. If you don't remember, that's fine. But we did a survey of the membership of ADIA, and 700 individuals responded to that, and you can see the breakdown of the respondents on this slide. And we asked questions around what are the major issues that are facing dental education today. And these were the top challenges. Recruitment of faculty, developing them and retaining them was top, followed very close as a number 2 regarding student indebtedness. Obvious to all of us. I think if we took a poll right now, we would probably come up with a similar, if not greater percentage for these two. These are both challenges that we have been facing for a number of years. And then you can see some of the other challenges that are listed there below. And some of them, even though they scored on the low end, have some relation to some of the challenges that scored higher. There are interrelated. These are not isolated, siloed challenges. Some of them overlap and intersect with each other. So these were taken and provided to the deans of all the dental schools, and they were asked to rate these areas on 2 axes. How important is this relative to dental education and the future of dental education? And then how can a DIA influence the outcome if we were to start to challenge these issues and start to address them in a more, maybe a higher level. And as you can see, everything rated pretty important for the most part. They were all kind of clustered on the x-axis. However, on the y-axis, you can see some changes from highest to lowest. And the one that stood out to me, but was obvious, was that the cost of dental education, that's really something, even though it's important to all of us, how much does a DIA really have to the ability to influence the cost of dental education? So that one, as you'll see, kind of came out, even though it rated very highly on the ultimate work group, subcommittee development that we did. So we selected these 3 issues: faculty and staff recruitment, leadership development and succession planning, and preparing students for the future of collaborative care. The subcommittees, I'm not going to read this to you, you can read it real quickly, but we formed the subcommittees so that at least 50% of them were from newer voices within the organization, younger faculty, staff, program directors, and so forth. We wanted to engage all the membership, including our colleagues in Canada on this, as well as the allied programs, to make sure that we were covering them, military, the postgraduate programs. So everyone was at the table. This wasn't focused on DMD, DDS programs alone. We really wanted to look at this very broadly. And then the other issue, which was sort of a foundation that ran across all of our groups, was to keep looking at everything through a DEI lens as we were approaching these different problems and developing solutions. And actually, each subcommittee tasked one person within the group to kind of be the monitor for that. We were all tasked to do it, and we did, but we always wanted somebody to be the voice in case we kind of drifted off in a direction and we weren't considering it to kind of bring us back to center, and that worked really well. So the project timeline, we started in June of 21. We spent the first 6 months or so developing the problems and alternative solutions. We then refined the problem statements and started the subcommittee work through March of last year. Right after the annual session last year to June, we evaluated the alternatives and decided on solutions for these different problem statements that we had developed, drafted plans, and then from October to November, you may remember, some of you, if not all of you in the room possibly, got another survey to give us feedback on the 3 problems and the solutions that we had developed. And then we took that feedback, we incorporated the feedback as appropriate into the final reports that we were developing, and then we actually put the final report together and assembled this presentation. And we're able to come today in front of you to present the results. And then going out of this meeting, we're going to look at starting implementation, and this is now going to pass on to a DIA so they can work on that, but we're also going to look at delivering this in some sort of a publication format in Journal of Dental Education, and there's discussions about putting this content on the web as well to allow the broader community to get access to it. So these are the activities of the subcommittee. I kind of covered a lot of this already, so I won't belabor it. Bottom line is we looked at a lot of information, a lot of data, synthesized things, worked on different tracks within the problems. Some things dropped off, some things came on. It was a very iterative process, and it actually, I believe, resulted in an outstanding result across the board. So that's the process that we went through and sort of the background. Hopefully that gives you some idea of what we're doing. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Esther, who's going to take you through the first subcommittee report.
Thank you so much, Cody. My mic drops. So when considering faculty and staff recruitment, these words by Dickens seem to capture it the best. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epic of belief. It was the epic of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. Did that capture the state of staff and faculty recruitment and retention at your schools? It captures it for us. And as a committee, we really delved into this issue, understanding the tremendous burden and challenges that are in place. Along with my colleague and friend, Dr. Hudson, we were able to take on in a wonderful subcommittee. You saw all the names, and some of them are in the room today, and thank you for being here. We were able to take on a discussion in this space that was robust, that was enlightening, sometimes emotional, but also impactful. And so you can see in front of you now the problem statement, and we tried to capture that as we listed the twin pandemics that we have all experienced and lived through, COVID-19 and the racial equity movement that has made a tremendous impact and change on the way we work, we live, and the way we experience life. Also, the shift in this paradigm as we think about how we can adequately compensate, recognize, give incentives and incentivize staff and faculty, along with the need for work-life balances and shifting. We know now most of our staff and faculty find time at home with the advent of Zoom and many other platforms for abilities to be across the world and to connect with others. This is a challenge that we're facing. And so we went forward after stating the problem statement, which you just read, to also continue to identify domains and areas in which we collectively could tackle or present to a DIA's board as areas of challenge and possibility. And so these are those listed here. Faculty burnout really was resounded as one issue that was tremendously an impact on why we're losing faculty and staff. Belonging-related issues, prestige, and some of this was really amazing. At the same time of this work, the climate study, first ever climate study by a DIA, which was being done, happening, also gave us further information and data to help back some of these statements that you're seeing here. Generational differences, how we work together with staff and students and generations coming together in the workspace. Of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion, mentorship, and at the end you see here, but probably could be anywhere along this list, compensation. The ability to go outside of our dental schools, our allied programs, our hygiene programs, and for folks to be able to work at home more or to be able to be paid more has really made a challenge to this area of staff and faculty recruitment. We found that there was some research, and we're so thankful again to ADIA and the work of the JDE on this special issue in the September issue of the JDE with highlights that gave us a lot of data, a lot of information to pull from. And we highlight a few areas here, but our subcommittee really engaged well with this data to help inform us as we were able to make these problem statements as well as our steps in learning. The HERE report, and I'm sure all you have these resources, but the HERE report, Groups in Dental Education, is a rich journal publication that helps us really think about these areas. We looked at faculty diversity and equity and inclusion in academic dentistry, revising the past and analyzing the present to create the future by Kane, Brady, and Engelhardt. In their study, they call for new ways, new pathways of thinking, how to also underscore belonging for faculty and staff to help allow retention of faculty and staff. This is a very useful resource that we encourage you all to take a peek at. Also, diversity in allied dental programs and community colleges by Jenkins and Moore. These are all in the September issue of the JDE. Also call for the need in allied programs to be innovative, creative, and to maybe give more work-life balance considerations as we're hiring and working with faculty and staff. And then finally, by our own Dr. Nada Shahi, Dr. Mays, and Dr. Kwok, HERE leadership pathways, a new landscape of value, intentionality, and belief. Again, in this paper, they talk about intentionality in developing leaders. And so with this data and with this information, we were able to not only think about our problem statement and construct it, but also the solutions that my partner and friend here, Joyce, Dr. Hudson, will present to you at this time.
Good afternoon. So in following Dr. Esther and our problem statement, we developed an overall preferred solution. And that overall solution is to elevate opportunities within academia. Many individuals in clinical dental hygiene or dental assisting or dentistry do not realize the many opportunities available, nor do they realize all the advantages. Our biggest advantage, as we all know and why we all do this, is the opportunity to influence and engage with future healthcare or oral health professionals. So who better to bring that voice forward than people currently in academia? We also need to convey the benefits of teaching in dental education, the benefits that we receive as far as part of our compensation package, but more so our ability to influence the future. When we looked at this, we developed a list of categories or themes to promote this forward, which include work-life balance, faculty loan repayment options, compensation, awards and recognition, and the ability to have a positive impact on future dental and allied dental professionals. Within this, we developed specific strategies to move each of these areas forward. So these next few slides, I'm going to go over with you some specific strategies that we developed. The first one being a dedicated pathway within ADIA for new faculty. When individuals transition into academia, they need support, they need resources. ADIA is the perfect way for them to obtain that. They need faculty professional development. All those things are available through ADIA. We also know when individuals are new to academia, they begin engaging with ADIA, that they become overwhelmed. They don't know exactly which avenue to go to, what to pursue, how do I fit in? And so our strategy there, our suggestion is a dedicated pathway within ADIA for new faculty to help best support those faculty. Our next strategy follows along those lines is that when individuals enter academia, they're coming from the clinical realm many times. They have expertise knowledge in how to perform procedures. They have expert knowledge in the skills that they need. However, when they come to academia, they find that's a whole new skill set. They may know how to do certain procedures, but effectively conveying that to students can be a challenge, and they often become frustrated. So along those lines, short-term certifications in educational pedagogy. Once again, ADIA is the perfect organization to provide that. Also, individuals who go on, spend the time and finances to earn these certifications really need to be compensated by their institution, recognized, and these also need to be used in the promotion and tenure process. A major one are competitive salaries and more balanced workloads. Individuals who come into academia have all the skills and the knowledge of those in private practice, and additionally, they develop a skill set for teaching that. So at a minimum, they need to be compensated in a way that is equitable to those in private practice. Another factor that we have to consider is individuals who come into education many times have advanced degrees, which they incur student debt with that. So we need to look at ways of student loan repayment options for those who go into academia. Most importantly, we need to look at a balanced work-life situation. Faculty need time to develop professionally, to earn these certifications, but most of the time, most importantly, they need time for themselves. They need time for that mental break so that they can be effective in the classroom and effective in the clinic. New faculty mentoring. This can happen both within the institution as well as through ADIA, which allows for national networking and collaboration. But the formation of student faculty development programs and organizations using the structure of ADIA, dental and allied dental student chapters, providing mentorship for best practices, support, and once again, looking at the advantages of mentoring also with collaboration and building that network of support as they continue to grow as an educator. One of the resources that ADIA offers with this is the Pearls of Wisdom Faculty Handbook that will be published this March. To grow academic dental career fellowship program opportunities within dental schools, ADIA can support this by helping to write grants and support those grants to help these expand within dental schools, and also with this looking at student loan repayment options. Faculty recognition. We all work hard. All of our faculty work hard, and they really need to be recognized for that. This can occur simply at the institutional level, through within the institution, but also to community stakeholders. This can also occur through ADIA, through their publications, their social media, their annual session. We can use podcasts, other videos, things like that to recognize and thank our faculty for their hard work. We can also engage the ADIA Corporate Council to recognize these faculty on their social media platforms. And then the final strategy is the recruitment of private practice dentists, dental hygienists, dental therapists, and dental assistants. You can have people in private practice who maybe thought about going into academia, but financially they had to go into private practice. Or you can have individuals who never really thought of that, or who were never really introduced to that avenue. Maybe after years in private practice, it's something they want to consider. Organizations such as the American Dental Association, American Dental Hygienists Association, American Association of Dental Assistants, Women in Dentistry, Hispanic Dental Association. We have a very inclusive list here of organizations that we can approach. Also, we know that many of these organizations or associations sponsor very large continuing education events. What better place to recruit or just to plant the idea of maybe entering academia, either as a full-time position or a part-time position. So I'm gonna turn it over to Abhishek.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to first start by thanking all our subcommittee members on behalf of all the three co-chairs, for your time and dedication. Thank you. So our group developed two separate problem statements for leadership development and succession planning. So let's start with leadership development. So the overarching problem for leadership development is shortage of prepared dental faculty to assume leadership positions. And some of the contributing factors that we identified are disconnect with institutions' culture. Leadership development should be included in institutions' overall culture. It should be integrated with the roles and responsibilities of all our faculty members. And we need to emphasize inclusiveness for all our faculty members. Another factor is high training cost and limited resources. ADIA and other organizations offer excellent leadership programs, but the participation is often limited by programs' inability to cover the cost and institutions' inability to sometimes permit time off to the faculty to attend these trainings. Lack of coordination and content. So as mentioned, we do have excellent existing programs available at institution level, state, and national level, but they may not be well coordinated. So the content may be repetitive and yet may lack critical content essential for leadership development. Minimal student programs. To ensure healthy pipeline of leaders within the dental education and our profession, we must recognize the need, and efforts should be made to offer leadership and academic training to our students while they are in dental school. Let's move on to our succession planning. Lack of succession planning has created a challenging environment to maintain the continuity of the institution's mission. And again, some of the contributing factors that we have identified are there is a tendency towards reactive succession planning than proactive approach. There is also a lack of holistic approach. Succession planning should include identification of internal talent, strategies to acquire external talent, as well as paying particular attention to diversity and use a holistic approach. Unconducive culture. Succession planning should be an open, fair, and a non-threatening process. And for that to happen, succession planning needs to become part of overall institution's culture. And we must recognize diversity as a strength for its long-term health and benefits. So even though we developed 2 separate problem statements, our goal was to bring these 2 areas together as we believe that they are strongly related and provide integrated solutions. And to present the proposed solutions, I would like to now invite to the podium Dean Guttmiller. Thank you.
So I would also just like to extend my gratitude to Nadir in inviting us for this opportunity and to our amazing subcommittees that worked hard. And what I was really excited about when we started on this adventure together is that we were really charged to take action. And so I'm going to be sharing a solution, in fact, today that I'm really delighted that ADIA is already taking action. So I have some notes that I just learned about 2 days ago in terms of one of our strategies. So important as we thought about this recommended solutions, one of the things that we determined was to create an assessment process where we could identify critical roles at institutions, and so that we could not only identify what roles are critical, but also the responsibilities required for those roles. And I would urge us to consider this is not something that we should be doing or just thinking about in terms of our faculty succession planning, but also staff succession planning as well. And the second piece of this is clearly talent identification. And so really thinking about individuals in the institution that could be prepared and thinking about them and developing them into future leaders. Importantly, as we all worked so carefully in thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging as we are doing so. And then now I'd like to shift to those specific talent development opportunities. So as we were working on this, we identified a program which we called the Match Program. And I'm pleased to say that this is where ADIA was in part working a bit in parallel, but knowing the good work that was happening with our subcommittee, and has actually formulated a program working in collaboration with Carl Hayden and developing now, or has developed, the Council of Dean Fellowship. So let me tell you a little bit more. The Council of Deans was just introduced to this program really in its entirety a couple of days ago at our Council of Deans business meeting. I think why this was happening so quickly is at the pinnacle of the pandemic, we had all of a sudden a shortage of deans in terms of there were a number of positions open, and were we really prepared to be encouraging and accelerating people into these positions. And so currently, 30% of the dental deans have been in their position less than or equal to a year, and 50% of the deanships have turned over in the last 3 years, just to inform you the amount of turnover. So we're really, really excited that this program is underway and that we'll be accepting applications in April. The application process will be similar to a dean search, so I think that's really exciting to actually walk through the process as if you were going to be a dean. It will have a very defined curriculum. There will be, as a part of the curriculum, dental school visits. So the individuals that are in this fellowship program will be visiting 2 different dental schools. and we'll spend a week with the deans and other administration and faculty within that school. This is something that, as we worked on it with our subcommittee, and which Carl and Adia have also agreed, this is patterned after similar programs, for example, with the AAMC, as well as the nursing education group. These individuals will also have dental coaches, and so they will be continued to be coached over the course of that year in terms of what it's like to be a dean. There will be an evaluation process, and this is going to be a one-year program. So again, we're really excited about this program and seeing things come into action so quickly. One of the things that I'd also like to highly encourage all of us, though, to think about are programs within our institution. And for example, when I was in my first time at the University of North Carolina, Adams School of Dentistry, there was an institutional leadership program that no dental faculty had ever participated in. And I was extremely fortunate to be able to be a first dental faculty to participate in this program. So it was a great experience, not only within the institution, but the program sent me to the Center for Creative Leadership, so some really formative experiences. My journey then took me to the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and Nebraska actually started a senior level program for individuals thinking about higher administration positions. So again, some of these programs exist out there, and I think we just need to be mindful of them and encourage our colleagues to participate in them. The Adia Mentoring Program, this is an idea that we had for programs not necessarily for a dean, but for other leadership positions in academics, such as Associate Dean for Academic Affairs or Clinical Affairs, et cetera. And what we'd really like to see with this particular program is that Adia would have a call for both mentors and mentees, and so you could align individuals at other institutions that are in these positions. So we are excited about this potential opportunity as well. Another is skills workshops, and this is what we would envision as something that could be online, or it could be symposia or seminars that would be offered at the annual session, for example. And as a part of this, individuals then would be certified or potentially even receive a micro-credential for taking these leadership courses. So this could be topics such as navigating difficult conversations or emotional intelligence. So again, we're excited about the prospect of introducing more skills workshops. In terms of strengthening or rethinking current programs that we already are familiar with, I want to just spend a little bit of time talking about the Academic Dental Career Fellowship Program that has already been mentioned. This program, I've had the good fortune of being a part of this program since its inception in 2006. And as some of you may recall, for several years it was actually led and organized by Adia, and now has really become more institutionally driven. I was incredibly inspired last night to be at the reception, and the room was so full that we barely fit into the room. And the numbers of students at various institutions that are thinking about academics as a career, seeing their posters today, it was really inspiring. But I think it might be time to just take a step back maybe and rethink maybe the program, and how are these individuals continuing to be nurtured once they've graduated? For those that are going into advanced education, is there an extension of this program? I really think it's an opportunity for us to partner with the Council of Students, Residents, and Fellows, and really continue to not only promote this program, but also enhance the program. We would like to also propose individual sections to think about leadership and opportunities and create some of the programs, for example, in BAFACA or amongst the academic affairs sections, et cetera. And so this would, again, be opportunities to develop programs and or tracks within the sections, and could be conducted, for example, at mid-year meetings as well as the annual session. And then I'll just close by saying that we are really excited about having Adia thinking of creating a repository of leadership materials. So this might be books, it might be podcasts, it might be publications, it might be blogs or an opportunity to really network online. So I think there's some very, very exciting leadership solutions. And as Afshin already mentioned, that we really decided we couldn't separate that leadership development from the succession planning. Again, thanks to our amazing team. We worked hard, but we had a lot of fun.
Good afternoon, everyone. Certainly wonderful to meet with you and see you here at the DEAR meeting. Unfortunately, my colleague, Dr. Andrea Estevez, can't be with us today. She's from the University of British Columbia. So I'm going to be with you for the next 10 or 15 minutes, presenting not only our problem statement, but the background information that we used, and finally, the solutions that we're proposing for DEAR to move forward on this one area. And we were charged with looking at preparing students for the future of collaborative practice. I will say that not only did our committee work hard on this, but I want to thank them for working across 3 different time zones, taking time away from their busy schedules to really actively participate, mainly in Zoom. So once we got over the hurdle of saying, you're muted, we got to the hard work. And it's been wonderful meeting some of you in person. And not to say you're muted, but to actually say to you in person, you look taller or shorter than you are in Zoom. So pleasure to be with you. So the first thing is that we really wanted to define as a group what we meant by collaborative practice. Collaborative practice is an approach that enables healthcare providers to deliver high-quality, safe, person-centered services to achieve the best possible individual health outcomes for a diverse population. Collaborative practice happens when multiple health workers from different professional backgrounds work together with patients, families, caregivers, and communities to deliver the highest quality of care across different settings. And finally, that communication, sharing, and problem solving between all pertinent healthcare professionals happens, and that this pattern of practice also implies a shared responsibility and accountability for patient care. So this was our working definition taken from several resources that we found. Our problem statement is that several trends will impact the future of collaborative practice. Dental education will have to anticipate these trends in order to educate and train the diverse dentists, residents, allied and expanded oral healthcare workforce to work in collaborative care environments. And even though our focus was interprofessional practice, we really talked about how intraprofessional practice in our settings really needs to improve as well, not only amongst programs that have dental hygiene programs and dental programs, but also amongst our DMD, DDS programs and some of our grad programs. Those are perfect settings to introduce these practices. We had many general principles that we considered from the literature and from the group in general, and I'll just spend the next 3 to 5 minutes reading these out to you. Number 1, all pre-dental discipline students should be taught teamwork and improved communication between health professionals. Dental curriculum should promote a team mindset to understand roles and responsibilities, improve mutual respect, and support teamwork for enhanced patient-centered care. And this is not only for us, but also for the other health professions. How oftentimes do we say our colleagues in the other health professions, number 1, don't realize what we provide to our patients, both in terms of general and overall health, but certainly COVID pressed the issue that we as healthcare providers should have been part of the response system in general in terms of our training and our abilities to interact with patients. Collaborative practice skills should be incorporated into curricula and clinical experiences. Dental schools need to create formal partnerships between dental professional programs to improve attitudes in clinical settings. And we also recognize that some of us, in terms of thinking about our physical plants and department structures, that these oftentimes don't facilitate collaborative care, and we really need to think about that as well. Next, we had dental education should provide opportunities for predoctoral dental students to be educated by allied dental professions, to expand respect for knowledge, roles, and responsibilities. Communication between dental schools and advanced dental education programs must increase and improve to facilitate better education and patient safety. Dental schools should collaborate with community and university resources to provide dental students at least one rotation, clerkship, or equivalent experience in relevant areas of healthcare and offer opportunities for additional elective experiences in hospitals, nursing homes, ambulatory care clinics, and other settings. And finally, on this slide, in addition to technical skills, dental education should also emphasize scientific, social, and structural competencies within healthcare. It's critical that curricular developments in dental humanities, structural competency, and health policy are treated with the same level of rigor as basic science or technical education. This slide covers a few extra points. Extra training and experience of IPE have the potential to lead to improved leadership, collaboration, and communication between healthcare teams, ultimately improving patient outcomes and safety. We need to not only think about programmatic changes, but also to think about what this means for our educators, not in terms of only bringing our traditional dentists and hygienists to the forefront, but thinking about social workers and other folks that can be brought in. So we do need to provide educators with the structural frameworks and building blocks for the development of IPE activities. Faculty development obviously is needed, and you'll see our proposals to ADEA are strong in this area. And then we need to think about the core competencies, roles and responsibilities, ethical practice, conflict resolution, communication, collaboration, and teamwork. Some of those items should be considered as an outcome when designing an interprofessional activity and, where possible, matched to assessment tasks. Role modeling needs to happen by facilitators. Obviously, they need to be trained. Dental institutions should continue to educate and emphasize the need for policy making and organized dentistry in furthering the dental profession as healthcare providers. And then finally, we recognize that none of these changes can happen without serious consideration from our accrediting bodies, licensure, board of registration. We need to think of scope of practice and billing practices. Oftentimes we hear from folks, we can't do that because we don't get reimbursed for it. And so those were really the collective thoughts of our group in terms of trying to encompass as much as we could learn about the future of collaborative practice. And then finally, our proposal to ADEA, I think, is pretty prescriptive, but we felt strongly about these. ADEA will hold yearly workshops as designated at ADEA meetings for IPP and IPE around curriculum development, competencies, assessment, faculty development, best practice, but it should encompass both inter and intra-professional practice. Now, we recognize this happens at meetings, so in order to really fully facilitate that, we feel that ADEA has to invest in what we call ambassadors, and these ambassadors will go to other health professional meetings like the AAMC, like nursing, like pharmacy, to really learn what these health professionals organizations are doing. And these ambassadors should then be responsible for coming back and basically educating ADEA and us to the best practices. We also felt that it's important that all of the IPE, IPP practices should be disseminated back into the schools, and we felt like the CCI model that we had, having one individual from each school being representative of that, would be able to carry this forward right back into the dental schools. We would like ADEA to host and showcase partners that can facilitate the kind of IPE and IPP that needs to be happening in our clinics, both intramural and extramural. So, for example, integrated health records, telehealth companies, et cetera, to expand, again, the group of people that we see in the exhibition halls. ADEA has to lead the effort with other organizations such as the ADA and ADHA to lobby on the behalf of schools and professions for changes that we need to happen for this to become a reality, licensure, et cetera, that I've talked about. And then finally, ADIA must be the organization that facilitates the incorporation of PGY1 general dental practices, and thanks to Russ Bergman, who made this clear to us as a GPR AEG director, that many of our specialties have parent organizations, or GPR programs really don't, and we feel in order to facilitate some of these changes, ADIA has to become that parent organization. And then finally, I think the most important statement is that through all of the items that I just presented, that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, both in terms of representation of the groups that we've talked about, needs to be central to all of these efforts. So with that, thank you for your attention. Back to you, Nader.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I may pause for a moment to ask the audience to give our presenters a round of applause. So for, two things. One, the incredible work that you and the subcommittees have done to bring these problem statements and the proposed solutions forward. The other one, which I know makes Dr. Chan in the back of the room very happy, you all stayed right on time. I'm really impressed. When you have so many presenters, that's not always easy. So I think Hubert's clapping in the back of the room there.
Just Hubert.
So I just want to make a few concluding remarks, and the remainder of the time we'd like to leave open. There's microphones in the room for you to ask follow-up questions and any ideas you have for the panel. One is, you may be, some of us have been around dental education for a long time. You may be sitting there, and as Fodi said at the beginning, say, oh yeah, this is no surprise to me. Some of these problems. Well, that's exactly the point. The reason why we wanted to reach out is there are some chronic issues that we've been dealing with, and as we come to this new century, we want to think differently about how do we resolve them. So a lot of this was crowdsourcing the ideas that came through the process with the solutions, and now transferring all of this work with these reports that have been done with the steering committee. This will go over to the board. The DIA Board of Directors has already started the process of looking at how we want to move forward with our strategic plan. Sorry. There's a joke that I won't tell you that just jumped in my head, so don't mind if I laugh at my own jokes without telling you what they are. So the board is already starting the strategic planning process, and this work will be an important part of that going forward. So all of these solutions, all the proposed ideas that came forward is moving forward to the board. So thank you from the board's perspective for that incredible work. I also want to underscore again, as we went through this process, it was to identify these issues, but it was also to amplify new voices and really hear from you, not just the same voices that we tend to hear at these meetings or see in the leadership roles. We really wanted to amplify new voices. And what was just incredible to me was the energy around this. When we would go around and talk to the councils and ask for representatives, whether it was in Allied or COSURF or the advanced programs or the deans or any of the programs, there was such engagement with the process, and the involvement of corporate and everyone through this. It really showed how interested we all are in the future and how we set our path going forward. So that engagement was really incredible. And again, as you heard all of our presenters talk about throughout all of this, the lens of DEIB, making sure that through all of our work in ADIA moving forward, and then also making sure that we look through the perspective of allied, dental, and advanced programs. It's really easy to have a conversation and then we fall into our narrow sections of what we're doing and then leave out other members. So I really commend all of you for the incredible work you did to keep that broad perspective and make sure it was in there, and you did it with your presentations. So I just wanted to hit on those 2 points in terms of my concluding remarks. The other thing that I'll say is to all of you in the audience, take a look around the room. Actually, take a look around. Look at the different faces that are in the room here. This room is full with a group of really talented, diverse individuals that care about this organization. My challenge to you is, as you heard these presentations, what the problem statements are and what some of the proposed solutions are, you heard a little bit in Janet's presentation that because of this work and the discussion that's been going on, there's already some solutions that are being implemented. Now, all of you, as you're listening to this, are thinking about what you can do. So, kind of tying it back to the theme, the possibility is within each of you. So don't sit there and say, what's the board going to do? Or what's IDEA going to do? You may have some great ideas. Start working on it. Find some other partners here in the room. Start talking about what your ideas are and bring them forward. So my challenge to you is to turn this into the action that we need as we go into the new century. So with that, I will thank all of you again for the incredible work that you did and the handoff that's going to be made to the board. Let's give our panelists another round of applause, and then I'll open it up to questions. All right, so as you're doing the questions, unfortunately, because of my schedule, I may need to run out and run somewhere else, so I will let the panel take the questions and address them all. Thank you. There are microphones in the front, so please don't.
Yeah. Any questions? Boy, we did a great job. Great. You all get 30 minutes back now.
So
Yeah.
I'll be quick. You talked a lot about, at the beginning, about faculty compensation and the fact that it should have some parity to practice, particularly. I mean, you think about all the skills that we have developed as educators over and above our clinical. But nonetheless, a lot of this is institution dependent. So what can, how can we overcome that? And how can ADIA help overcome that at an institutional level, or helping institutions overcome that? Because I think that's a really huge barrier at the local level.
I think a lot of it will come from the institutions looking at an internal process of faculty development, what sort of faculty development offerings they have. Everything from faculty development offerings for the new educator, as well as as they work through their academic career. One of the things we've learned about at this meeting is the micro-credentialing that's now available through ADIA. So that is a possible avenue as well. As far as specific recommendations, I don't really have those. As it's been said, that this will really pretty much go back to the board of directors. But I think as you go back to your institution, looking at what you can do, something as simple as you giving professional development, offerings to individuals just within your department. What can you do from there and kind of grow it from there? So it can go from just very, very simple, from a department level all the way to an institution.
Yeah, the hope was, as you talk about parity, as ADIA takes this on as a board and start to look at parity across our dental schools, the hope is that maybe we'll start to have reports, information around faculty compensation at various schools. And, of course, that will be dependent upon institutions and also regions, right? But also there's an opportunity to learn more and kind of elucidate, if you will, what's happening at other institutions, and so that there could be more parity across all the locations. That is, again, some work that may be taken on individually, and bring that to, as the board addresses the questions, how we can also, as members, activate some of those solutions too.
I believe the salary survey should be coming out the latest.
Yes.
Sometime either this month is what I was told, and we're going through at my institution a review of all faculty salaries. But this is something I struggle with, Laura, as someone who's going to be recruiting a few faculty over the next couple of years, and many of them will probably be coming from the private practice community. And I think it's never a dollar for dollar compensation. We will never be able to do that. But I think if you can provide them, a decent compensation for what they're doing based on their academic rank, and then maybe bundle that with some other benefits that they don't really understand. So for example, at our institution, every faculty member gets $3,000 that they can use towards professional memberships. So an ADA membership, their specialty organization, they can use that in any way they want, and that's for a fiscal year. And so when you're in practice, you can expense those costs. The other thing is they provide an additional $1,500, and this is at the university level. Then at the school level, you can add more. You can provide $1,500 for continuing education costs, above and beyond what you normally would be doing for your job. So if you were interested in doing something that was a little outside of the norm, you're able to do that. So I think if you start putting those things together, and then also, the work-life potential, opportunities, I think that's where you can get a little creative. So,
Could I
great
just
question. Sure.
follow up on that as well? Because I think it's important in terms of when we're recruiting faculty to talk about the compensation package, the relocation, what that means. But I think it's incumbent upon us, if we're at a state institution, especially, to be the advocacy work that we need to be doing. In my 4 months at Adams School of Dentistry, I've met with legislators twice already to tell our story, to tell where we're needing the resources. Also, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to be reaching out to prospective donors for professorships, endowed professorships, so that there are other ways to add to that compensation package.
Well, I want to begin by saying thank you so much for all your work. This was just very inspiring on a lot of levels. And I'm wearing a couple hats standing here. I'm wearing the provost hat. I'm wearing a former president of ADIA, and also just somebody who wants, of course, the next 100 years to be fabulous. I don't know if I'll be here at the next 100-year celebration, so we're charging everybody behind me with making sure it happens. But I just have a couple comments, and I'll begin with this. I liked your idea of ambassadors and going to other health professions. I think one of the challenges we have, whether we're recruiting students to become faculty, and I appreciated your comments, Janet, about the next generation, or to be leaders, or to have an administrative role, I think we're our own worst enemy. I think we have to create ambassadors within our institutions and at meetings like this. What student has not heard something like, I don't get paid enough to do this, all right? Or I can't believe it's the dean, we'll pick on the deans, is making me do this, or the clinical dean is making me do this, or I don't get any respect, whatever. And I think as a young person, if I were hearing that, or if I see our faculty, and this is a tough thing to resolve, how do we remedy that? But I also think, and when we talk about work-life balance for faculty, that we need work-life balance for administrators. COVID, the way that many of us are on our laptops or our phones in between meetings, whatever position that you have. I stood in line at lunch with somebody trying to deal with something. Some California schools were closing down due to weather. So they're working at this meeting, right, trying to solve problems. And I think we too have to be ambassadors about, to your point, what you were saying about benefits to recruit faculty. I don't disagree, but there are some benefits to being a leader or being part of a team. Or maybe we speak more about terms for certain leadership roles, right? So you do it not for life, but for a period of time, and then someone else can have that role, and someone can return, but they get time away. A different kind of thinking about sabbatical. The other thing that I have a long list, but I'll stop after this. The other suggestion that I have, I love the idea of professional development for that maybe your dental school is providing or within a department, but it might be helpful depending where you are, and this is the provost in me, why don't you invite some other health professionals or collaborate with them? If you're trying to build IPE, then why not? And we do, AAL, for example, offers some things where many professional groups and others can come together. But I wonder if at any point, and this is another priority, that ADIA could not host some kind of an and we've done this in various degrees, but an interprofessional summit where we talk about the same things they're dealing with, right? Leadership succession, recruitment, DEIB. This could be a long summit, but that idea where we partner with different individuals because they may have some other ideas. So ambassadors going one way, or we invite some ambassadors to work with us from other professions to kind of build that collaboration. So thank you again for all your work, very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's great.
Thank you for the great presentation. As the chair of a department of endodontics, I've been dealing with an acute faculty shortage for a number of years. And the discrepancy between academic salaries and private practice compensation is great and vast. Also, I'll put on another hat as an officer of the AAE. I'm very concerned that endodontics should be taught by endodontists. So in dental specialties, I think we are very much reliant upon recruiting part-time faculty. And I was wondering, within your studies here, did you consider any programs specifically aimed at recruiting part-time faculty and then hopefully eventually turning them into full-time faculty? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, we're a school that has a lot of graduate programs. So certainly, I think I hear what you're saying across a lot of different specialties. What I would ask Adia to do is really survey the landscape to say, where are the success stories? Where are the best practices around that? And that's a comment I think that can be picked up in terms of thinking about that. And I'm sure that we'll hear some stories about either tracks or programs within certain dental schools where they've been able to address it. Some obviously offer flexibility if you're a private school between private practice and coming in. But I think your comment about people that are part-time, and there are schools that have 0.5 and you get the benefits and practice on the outside is well taken. So I think all of those things need to be considered within the scope of what Adia is being asked to do in terms of faculty recruitment and retention. And that survey of that landscape, because there's a lot of new schools with new models as well, just needs to be understood so we can share, best practices around that. Right. Yeah, we have a lot of people that are 0.5 exactly for that purpose, and we have extended days, so you can do 2 extended days and a half day and still do 2.5. So I think there's a variety of models out there that are working. Obviously, state schools are limited sometimes in the ability of people to practice on the outside. But there's lots of other models that I've heard about that need to be thought about and applied, because that challenge of, I think, recruiting specialists, if that's what you're driving both for your grad programs and you believe in that for your DMD, DDS programs, continues to be a challenge also from the HR perspective in terms of the cost of recruitment.
Yeah, thank you.
Nadeem, I'm going to hit you up again. I think you had the most important and exciting part of this plan when you think about the next 100 years, because collaborative practice is the transformation of dentistry as a profession and of dental education, unlike these other problems which are always with us and always will be with us. Sort of like what Jesus said about the poor. Faculty recruitment and retention and salaries are going to be always a problem. But we're going to have to change dentistry in the future. And you use the term collaborative practice model, and that's a good term. But I think that it's used differently in graduate medical education on the medical side, and they talk about systems-based practice, health systems-based practice. So it's a different way of framing it. And what's exciting about that difference is that we are in a position that we must change to make the practice model reasonable for dentistry. We remain the only health profession where the clinical practicum is not performed in a health system. It is performed in a student-based clinic. So to me, the big lift is, how do we get our clinical practicum to be part of systems-based practice and to be integrated in health systems through the electronic health record, through the billing, through vertical delivery systems, through primary care integration, and all those things? That's my question for you.
Yeah, those challenges obviously are things that I think we're even worse off than we used to be. So, when I went to dental school, we had a lot more dental services that were in the hospitals, for example. The GPR at the Brigham was in the hospital. We had oral surgery at the Beth Israel. And what I've seen over time is those services being kind of taken out of the hospital systems. So the model, I think, the models that we need to think about and the barriers really are key to that. And I think we try to at least bring that up in terms of thinking about billing, the electronic health record, and all of that. So it's going to be a collective thought process moving forward, because the biggest barrier, even for the schools, I think, that have models that they've introduced, is how do you actually put this into practice if you're not even going to be able to get reimbursed for certain services. I think COVID, kind of forced the issue and brought some opportunities for us to think about how we can be considered to be a part of the healthcare team, whether it was schools and faculties that got trained to give vaccines and were allowed to do that. So I think the conversation in COVID has forced the issue somewhat. But we have a healthcare system that's also struggling. I mean, our hospital next to us is losing millions of dollars. All the healthcare systems in the Boston area are losing millions. I mean, the fact that I think dental schools survived COVID and are coming out of it relatively healthy, I think says a lot to our kind of model so far as well. But I certainly don't have the answers to, what you're posing. And I think the systems-based thought, I've read a little bit about it in terms of trying to encompass, all the other vulnerabilities that we see in our population, socioeconomically, access to care. I mean, those are huge issues that we need to make sure that our students are aware of, at least those issues when it comes to curriculum and finding the time to educate them to the big umbrella of all of those things that come under the system-based approach.
Thank you.
Hi, I really agree with the view that, fulfillment at workplace for the current faculty is the best marketing strategy for future recruitment. And I was involved in my institution to address and to look at faculty satisfaction and faculty fulfillment. And I found that there is not much really information out there when we compare different institutions where we are. And we know that fulfillment comes from professional growth and contribution to the field and community, and how much we really give opportunities to our faculty to create that fulfillment path on these two things is important. I'm really curious to hear from deans how much of a priority it is for you in your strategic planning, faculty fulfillment, and what type of projects do you have in your institutions that could inspire us towards faculty fulfillment? Thank you.
I think, and then I'll pass it on to the other deans. Faculty fulfillment obviously comes from some of the things that we really like to do on a daily basis, whether it's interacting with our colleagues or our students. Reinforcing those practices, I see, can be rewarding in some of the off-site activities that we do. We have a yearly Faculty Appreciation in-Service Day. Last year, we actually shut all the clinics to facilitate that, and it was highly appreciated because it wasn't only recognition of the faculty that have served, but it was all allowing all the other colleagues to come and celebrate with them. So I think some of the informal celebrations, and certainly COVID forced the issue for us. I mean, just the fact that we can get back together in person and celebrate our students' accomplishments, our faculty accomplishments, I feel has brought back some of that. I think it's listening to our faculty. We have a faculty advisory council and being transparent with them around what we can and can't do for a variety of reasons, whether it's within the university structure or even budget-wise. It's creating career tracks, I think, that people that are teaching every day in the clinics can see that I can advance my career as well. So I know many schools have thought about not only rewarding people for grants and for writing papers, but they've created clinical educator tracks. Those still need to have a portfolio, but educating them that there is a path forward can certainly help. So, that touches on some of the things I think that we can try to achieve. And I think many of the types of things that have been posed here as well around creating tracks for all faculty to be able to participate in, whether it's the emerging leaders or the other tracks that some of us do send our faculty to is another way of doing that. And perhaps using technology as well. I mean, there are many people that can't travel to this meeting, But there's no reason why ADIA can't create virtual tracks where they can be a part of a hybrid program here and participate as well.
And I would add, I think that the faculty development piece is so important in institutions. So having, dedicated resources to faculty development programming, both, within the institution, as well as having the resources to send your faculty to meetings like this. But, at the end of the day, it's about being valued. And just even as my respective institutions have worked with faculty retention, for example, it's having that conversation with the faculty and letting them know how valued they are. So I think that, we don't have all the compensation, answers that we'd like to have today, but I think, importantly, it's, again, letting them know that they're valued, that they have these opportunities. I happened to be on a panel yesterday, I think it was, I've lost track of time, where we're talking about Gen Z and, will they become potential faculty members? And there was some comments about promotion and tenure process. I think it's time to dust off our promotion and tenure processes if we haven't. I mean, some of the newer schools, kudos to you because you're probably developing very thoughtful processes, and I think that we need to really think through what our faculty are doing and how we can reward them through that promotion process.
I just want to add one thing. I'm not a dean, but I just want to add something that what Dean Guttmiller said about value, right? My dean was one of the first person. He even came before me to this meeting, and he was sitting right there. And literally, he told me just a few words of encouragement that you're going to be great at this, and it makes that's what we need. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't need a pay raise, and pat on the back and just showing the support, being there. That means a lot, and I think that's what it is that he continues to value us even on the clinic floor or bringing them. Okay, how can we help you? You are doing a great job. What else we can do to support you? I think sometimes that's what the faculty needs to just carry on.
And just to cap off, and Carl, I'm not trying to keep you from asking your question. Obviously, I just want you to know that. Starting a new school, I have one opportunity to do this right. Really just one opportunity, because if you don't come out of the gate really with the great plan, you're gonna be doing a lot of work down the road. And for me as a leader, and this is something some of you know, I like to do a little reading, and I would highly recommend a book by Bob Chapman, who is the CEO of Barry Waymiller, which is a privately held company. And his philosophy around leadership, I think, and I'm talking about leaders at all levels of the organization, not just the dean, but our role as leaders is really to create an environment at our institutions where those who come in every day wake up in the morning and are excited to come in, regardless of whether they are a faculty member, a staff member, or a student for that matter. They should be excited about coming in every day, and our responsibility is really to reduce the friction that happens every day that allows them to do their work to the best of their ability, whatever, again, their role is, and that they go home feeling fulfilled and satisfied, whether they got a compliment or not. They just have that feeling, and they want to come back the next day to do it, because one of the things that he noticed in all of his work as he started to change his company's culture to this, focused of really creating this positive environment, is that people were reporting better home lives within the workspace when they were talking to them, that they would go home and their home lives with their families and significant others were improved because they were going home in such a better place than they were before the culture changed. He talks about, treating every person within the organization as your precious child. I think for a lot of us that's a little bit of, it's a little squishy, and you struggle with that. But if you think about that, and how you, if you have children, how you support them and provide for them, and if we kind of extend that same concept to the people in our organization, you could start to see some really amazing changes in a short period of time. But it's got to be something the entire organization embraces. So, Carl, I'm sorry, please.
Thank you. Not a question, but an observation and maybe a suggestion. So in preparing students for the future practice, that means lots of things. And I expect there's a great deal of variability among schools in terms of IPE and the value they place on IPE. I believe there are gaps, not only across the schools and the value, but also there's a big gap between the discussions of IPE at a national level with national associations and then what actually happens, all right? I think we all know that. So that's the gap between collaborative practice and IPE. And I think a lot of times the way that we've approached this issue of IPE for collaborative practice is that educators get together and they talk about IPE and they feel good about they're envisioning the future, but it never really gets to collaborative practice. This past summer, we had a conference in Atlanta with IPEC, and the title of the conference was Bridging the Gap. And so one of the things we did as a part of that conference was we brought in practitioners, physicians, dentists, nurses, pharmacists, who are on the front line. So they're not policymakers, they're people who are actually practicing. And I can tell you there was a huge gap between what they experience, what their values are, how they think of collaboration, and how the educators are thinking about it. So one suggestion is, as you think about bringing people together and talking about the future of practice, not only the ADA, but see if you can bring other practicing or associations, organizations that represent the practitioners. And even better, some of the people who are in the trenches as practitioners, so you can learn from them and really sort of plan backwards from collaborative practice to IPE instead of from IPE to collaborative practice.
That's a great suggestion.
Great
Thank
suggestion.
you.
I think we have a symposium for next year.
There you go. Anybody want to be on a committee and a work group for next year?
Excellent. So thank you very much for the presentation. It's always tremendous to get new ideas. So I'm going to follow up on the IPE concept. The problem that we've had, and we've been teaching IPE for 10, 15 years now, is that the students also don't see value in it because they go through the whole process and they know that when they graduate, the majority of them are going to go into a private practice setting and they won't really experience that collaborative work. So I think in order to have value, they have to see, and therefore the shift has to be a shift of what happens after their education is completed. So we're starting a pilot project now, and because we're from Canada and there's a huge shortage of oral healthcare and general healthcare professionals, the pilot project really blurs the lines of scope of practice in the sense that in communities where there is very little access to healthcare providers, would a dentist, a dental hygienist, a pharmacist be able to provide a baseline exam for a patient and be able then to triage and refer that patient when the next healthcare provider comes along, be it a physiotherapist, a physician, or practicing a nurse practitioner. So the discussion that we've started with other schools is what is that baseline assessment and can it be performed by any healthcare provider, including our undergraduate students? And the value proposition from a government standpoint or a healthcare provider standpoint is now you're increasing your healthcare workforce by quite a bit because multiple providers can screen. They can take a blood pressure, they can go through a medical history, they can vaccinate. So there are certain things that across the board. Now there is value. There is value for the students to learn. There is value for people to be able to help universities to provide this curriculum. So I am stretching beyond what we've done in terms of traditional IPE to consider what scope of practice means. And we've seen pharmacy in Canada do that. They have the PharmD program. Pharmacists provide vaccinations, provide consultations, provide counseling. So my thought here would be that perhaps an expansion in that direction might be more useful and also at the same time help in terms of the provision of healthcare across the board for those underserved communities.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that, hearing this, and obviously there's a lot of different experiences that people are having in IPE, the voices, I think, that not are called for to now, work on these things moving forward will be critical to the process. I know that there's a lot of innovative things that are happening, not only within our schools, but some in the practice environment. We hear about Kaiser Permanente and what they're doing. Recently, I've heard about a DSO that's getting very invested in thinking about integrated healthcare models for delivery. So all of these things are going to be critical, and I think hopefully we'll start to see some good examples. I know at our institute, we actually have 2 full-time MDs and 1 nurse practitioner, and Dr. De Silva, who's here, is on a HRSA grant that is inviting a social worker in, and Dr. Arsenault as well. So I think a lot of schools probably have grants to really start saying what are the models, not only within our dental schools of bringing people in, but also, for example, what you're talking about. And so hopefully ADIA will now invest in those efforts moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we're just at time. So with that, I will call the session to a close and thank everyone for joining us. And again, thank my colleagues on the panel for joining me up here. And we look forward to continuing the journey. Thank you.